Welcome back to the Mercenary Historian channel. My name is David. I'm a professor of history, and we'll be continuing our discussions on all kinds of historical topics. For those of you who've been with me on this relatively short journey, you might be able to detect that I've got a new camera, I've got a new mic, and I've got some new editing software that I haven't figured out how to use yet, but I'm getting there. Like I said, incremental changes, as is the case on every new channel, I hope, especially an amateur one like mine. Uh, I wanted to continue our discussions through the month of October. We've done vampires, we've done werewolf, we've done Adam, Frankenstein's monster recently, and my family just yesterday, as a matter of fact, went to a little side trip to a place called Cynthiana, Kentucky. For those of you who don't know, there are several decently sized Civil War skirmishes that happened in Cynthiana. It is a lovely little town, and it is also the home of Robert Kirkman, or birthplace of Robert Kirkman, I should rather say, the creator of The Walking Dead. So they have a little skeletons Halloween festival there. Unfortunately, I should have brought my camera with me and done the whole YouTube bit, but once again, I'm new at this, so my apologies. All that is to get to the discussion we're going to have today, which is zombies. I've gotten a few questions about them in the comments, so I figured I would continue the discussion. It seemed like a decent topic for the month of October to fit in with the rest of what we were talking about. Now, the story of the zombie. It seems to start with Africa and slavery. Uh, a difficult topic at the best of times, but as slaves from different regions of Africa were taken and transported to the Americas, many tried desperately to hang on to traditions and faiths that were often only half remembered in the stress of being kidnapped. These African diasporic religions flowed with the slave trade and blended with parts of other faiths, leading to practices like voodoo, Santeria, Condable, and others. Uh, Even the word zombie itself seems to be a corruption of an African term, Nzambi, Nzambi, which means the spirit of a dead person. This probably leads to some of the initial conceptions of the legend, but, these kind of things are like a game of telephone in history sometimes. I know modern telephones, I'm old, what can I say? But it's where you tell one person something, and by the time it gets to the 20th person, it's a very different story. Spread this out through different languages and different ideas and different cultures, and then extend it out through a series of centuries, and you can see how things get a little fuzzy sometimes. Uh, Now, the sad truth of this, especially in the Caribbean, many slaves only lived a few years after their arrival, falling to exhaustion, disease, starvation. Um, so it's unsurprising that the original idea of the zombie curse, so to speak, mirrored the real horrors endured by the enslaved. Endless, mindless toil as you wasted away to nothing. The concept that this could continue beyond death must have been the only fate they could imagine that was even remotely worse than what they were actually going through in real life. As I've said in past videos, many people rely on being scared to build resistance to real world horrors. It's part of the reason you see horror films become so popular in times like the Great Depression. Um, but to our original topic, the first use of the word zombie in print appears to have been in an American newspaper in 1838 in a short story called The Unknown Painter, where a zombie spirit with an eye would work on a series of paintings at night. Uh, Clearly, this has little relation to the modern zombie, the animated corpse of the dead, but here it's clearly a spirit that comes to accomplish tasks. But this idea of a subservient animated corpse that dominates the zombie legend for so long doesn't seem to fully mature or arrive until 1929. Now, clearly, animated corpses had been inserted into the public consciousness by Mary Shelley's Frankenstein in 1818. But the subservient part, that was new. In 1929, William Seabrook, published a book on Haiti and voodoo called The Magic Island. He followed voodoo cults and told stories of plantations with hordes of zombie slaves featuring prominently. This turned out to be very popular, and many other stories would follow in magazines like Weird Tales about the creation and use of zombies for labor, menial tasks, murder. Now, interestingly, about this same time, another literary and science fiction creation was building up in the public consciousness. A series of stories of mechanical automatons, robots, were almost identical to the plot of zombie fiction. The only difference being the process of creation, right? Now, for zombies, things stayed the same until about 1968. And those of you who are horror fans already know what I'm about to say. The release of The Night of the Living Dead by George Romero. Now, from this point forward, zombies become a carrier in stories for social commentary. This is especially true in Night of the Living Dead, where the protagonist is African American. And the movie is released on the eve of the execution of Martin Luther King. This leads many to associate it with the civil rights movement. And Romero has had various comments when he was alive about the symbolism of the movie. He was a little inconsistent from time to time. But from this point forward, the social commentaries are part and parcel of the zombie mythology that arises from modern cinema. Other films like 1978's Dawn of the Dead, we might as well stick with George Romero, it becomes a critique of consumer culture along with race and class issues. And Day of the Dead in 1985 examines kind of the fragile nature of civilization and how it can fall apart and turn to barbarism very, very quickly in its collapse. Modern zombie films have examined our fear of disease, with 28 Days Later, or isolation, like the really solid Korean film, hashtag Alive, on Netflix at the moment, by the way. Social bonds, like Train to Busan, and personal responsibility. These are all ways to insert message into the story. Even The Walking Dead, as I mentioned Robert Kirkman earlier, the title is deceptive. It can be applied equally to the zombies. By the way, they never say the word zombies in The Walking Dead, as I'm sure many of you know. And it can also be applied to the remaining survivors and what they do with their limited and precarious time left in the world. So, what does this all mean? Where do we go? In the previous videos, I've talked about historical instances or apparent historical instances of these myths and how they apply. Unsurprisingly, unlike many of the others I've talked about so far, there are not many instances that I can point to of historical zombie outbreaks, so to speak. So I have to reference instead a book. The 1985 book, The Serpent and the Rainbow, by Harvard anthropologist Wade Davis. In the book, Davis goes to Haiti and explores Haitian voodoo culture and studies the case of Claravius Narcisse, who claimed to have been a zombie for over 2 years. After meeting with a Bokur, a practitioner of voodoo, Davis said that the process making a zombie involved a mix of natural poisons combined with a hallucinogenic substance and mixed with deep cultural beliefs in the system of Haiti created a zombie-like effect. Now, to be clear here, Davis was accused of, well, frankly, just making it up. Fraud, right? Since the samples he provided did not contain much, if any, of the chemicals he cited, biologists and neurologists also disputed his claims. Davis, of course, suggested testing errors and other natural chemicals that helped process the effects through the system. But in the end, the book is mostly forgotten today because of those reasons. However, it did manage to spawn a passable movie by Wes Craven, the creator of Nightmare on Elm Street, titled, appropriately enough, The Serpent and the Rainbow. You can go check it out. Parts of it hold up really well, others not so much. But I'll let you discover that on your own. This kind of brings us to the end of the zombie discussion, but I look forward to hearing what you have to say in the comments. Feel free to ask any clarifying questions you can. I'm sure I've made mistakes here, so feel free to call me out on those as well if you wish. But this brings us to our last, and for some, the most important zombie question. Fast zombies or slow zombies, right? I hope you join me again if you like the content and all my blunders throughout. Please hit the like and subscribe button. I promise I'll get better as time goes on. I'm getting a little more comfortable with the setting. Thank you very much, and I will see you again when you hit the play button one more time.